Hello and welcome to week 5 tutorial, Penciling Your Page Part B. Hope everyone is checking out these tutorials, enjoying what's being created here on the Holler. I would like for you to communicate more with us. Get on there, it's a community. This program is going to be an opportunity unlike we've ever seen in the KVEC region and the 18 counties participating. But also if you're just interested in learning how to pick up different tools and techniques when it comes to drawing, then these videos are really going to help you get an understanding of the foundation, the building blocks, if you will, in creating a finished product, whether it's with cartooning, illustration, or anything in between, graphic design. There's a whole range of different areas we can go down. But for Penciling Your Page Part B, we're going to be looking at a few examples of pages from early sketches using circles and shapes and other types of objects put together as a foundation to draw more detailed aspects of the illustration upon. Remember the Marvel method. When we reference this, we want to go back to that. Remember those circles and those shapes. We're going to be going from the whiteboard here, the smartboard, to the desktop and a few things. So first we're going to be looking at a couple of examples here on the smartboard, and then we'll be also looking at a more close-up version of these examples on the table. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Now these videos, I'll say this before we start, these videos are actually a part of the art gallery workshop. So they're different tutorials that are going together for anyone interested in creating their own written illustrated book, chapter book, graphic novel, picture book, or comic book. So I hope you access these and use them often, and you can even go back to them later on whenever you're drawing just yourself, okay? Alright, so we'll look up here on the whiteboard for a second. I actually brought up this to show you, and what this is, you're looking at an illustration that I did for Julia and Melinda Richardson's Owen Owl's Wise Words. So this is a page from their book. And I wanted to give you sort of an example here of what we've been talking about. Whenever you're thinking about your finished page, now of course this is finished. It's been penciled, it's been outlined and colored. I want you to notice the elements on this page. The first thing I want you to notice is look at where the words appear. We've got words here and we've got text here, or words there. They're not blocking any of the center images. They're positioned so that they're off-centered just a bit. Now this is one paragraph, but it's been broken down into two parts. So whenever you're creating your finished page, we want to think about where your words will go. Another example on this page is the setting. Notice that we have the branch extending all the way out here. So we have the branch, we have flowers. The green indicates that it's at least in a forested area. We can tell that there's leaves down here at the bottom. The blue up here at the top indicates a sky. All of these elements help to create your setting, which is very important in your story. Okay? Now let's take a look at the main character on this page. This is a macaw, a parrot. His wings are extended, as you can see, going out. His head is pointed towards the viewer. His feet here on the branch, which helps make up the setting, with his mouth open, and so on and so forth. Now, you may wonder, how is it that an illustrator decides to draw a parrot this way as compared to a parrot simply standing there with its wings folded down or looking to the left or right? Well, the answer to that really is it's up to the illustrator. Whenever you're designing a page, the first thing you want to do is think about those elements. Now I want you to pretend with me that what you're seeing here is a blank piece of paper. So when you created your storyboard, one of the things that you needed to do is use the Marvel method. You want to think about what's going to go on that page, what words will be on that page. For the words help guide you on your content, okay? So be sure and think about this as you go along. I'm going to sketch out now what the penciled version of the page for Owen Owl's Wise Words, showing the parrot, would look like if I was doing it all over again on paper. So here we go. the first thing that I would do is take into consideration the words, what's going to appear on the page. I would do a very rough draft. Let me change the color of that to black. There we go. I would do a very rough sketch. Well, it's still red. All right. I would do a rough sketch of what would appear there. I guess we're going to have to stick with red. That's okay. This will be just a very, very rough shape. It almost looks like a bat, doesn't it? Of what the body of the main character will look like. The other element then would be the branch coming across the page. This goes up and across. Here we have the leaves appearing over here. And there's all kinds of leaves on the page to show, or flowers too, what type of setting or environment that our parrot is found in, okay? Now, once I have all of this together, I want to think then where the words will appear. So I think the words were here and here on the finished page. So this was where my text appeared, okay? Now, this is something that needed to be worked on and finished in your storyboard. So this is an example of what your storyboard, a page from that would look like for your finished book. Now, the goal of this tutorial and last week's tutorial is taking these weird shapes and putting those onto a finished page. We talked a little bit last week about taking your time. That's really important. Craftsmanship is very important. Had a question today from one of the counties while we conducted the link session, and the question was, what type of binding will this book be? Is it going to all be hard case, hardbound, a hard book? And the answer to that is no. The binding that we're going to put together for this program is going to be glued, so perfect bound. Now, I'll reference Ted Hudson's work again, and I'll show you a picture of his work up here. So this is Ted Hudson's Noah's Ark. And if you look at this, you're going to notice that the cover itself is spread out into two shapes here. We have the back cover and the front cover. This is a hardbound book. What we're going to do, we're going to look at your work when you're finished. We're going to look at your work, and if that work stands out, then we will be considering printing or working to get your book published. That's the goal, but your work has to stand out. You have to put the time in for that. You have to use craftsmanship for this. So it's really important that you take your time on these pages. It's very important that you use craftsmanship, okay? Now, while we have this cover up, I want to show you something. We talked a little bit earlier today about your cover. Now, notice on Ted's book, we have a few things here. We have the title over here, so we know exactly what the name of the book is. At the bottom, we have his information, written and illustrated by Ted Hudson. Now, like I said, this book is opened up, so here's the spine of the book running along this way. If your book is chosen to be printed, your information would be here. The title would go here, your name would be here. On the back, we have a barcode. This barcode is what stores use to scan the book to tell how much it is and information about the book, the author, the illustrator, the publisher, so on and so forth. Next, we have a small blurb or summary of the book. Back on the back here is Ted's summary, and what it says is, out of the Holy Bible, the story of Noah comes to life through the eyes and talent of Ted Hudson. Journey with him into the book of Genesis and experience this timely story. So this is the title, the cover of the book, and what's really good about this as an example is it shows you what you could place on your cover. You want to have these elements. You want to have your title, you want to have your name, and you want to have pertinent information about the book's characters and the setting. There's no doubt by looking at the cover of Ted Hudson's Noah's Ark that you see that it's about a boat, and there's a man on the boat with a dove. There's a rainbow showing that it must have just rained. And in the far background over here, you see a mountain. So there's dry land. Anyone familiar with the biblical story of Noah's Ark realizes all of these are elements in this biblical story. And so that's a great job, a great example. But let's go back now to our whiteboard, and let's take this into consideration. In your finished pages, you want to think about this as you do the cover, okay? We're going to go ahead and start to draw on top of this now. Now, for your storyboard, you should have all of these elements drawn out in various shapes. You get to fill those in at this point. So your finished page, you're going to draw in the elements that make up the characters now. So here we'll have the beak, the head coming back this way. Here we'll have the eye of the parrot. Okay, and you start adding these details in now. Here's the markings going back. The wing will come out this way. All right, you had the various feathers all along the wing. They get longer and longer as we go out. And these are all the little details that you need to complete your finished page. All of these details come together when you're putting together this finished page, so that at the end you have all the information you already need. You know what your characters look like through your character design. You have your setting in place. You know what's going to appear on each page. So when you start to do the fine detail, it should all come together. Now we're going to jump over to the table for a second, and I want to show you an example of Yuri Chauvitz writing with pictures. Yuri did an amazing job with this book. He has actually put together here some examples for us. And if you look really close, you're going to see up here at the top, we have the finished, this is actually a really rough draft of what the page would look like. And I'm talking about this top image up here. From there, he shows us then a little more detail. You notice there's less lines and just scribbles. This is starting to look more like shapes now. He's erased a whole lot and starting to get the details to come in. You notice up at the top too on this one, he had this, the wall actually crumbling a little bit, so he decided on this one he didn't want that. So it's gone now. So you make changes as you go along. Down here at the bottom, we can see this is a little more detailed now. This looks like almost finished page. You still have some rough lines around here, maybe some of the eraser marks or the pencil lines aren't really out of there that well or taken off the page, but this is still in a rough draft. He's actually created 1, 2, 3 penciled versions in order to come up with the information he needed to create this finished page. This is a great example of a storyboard and dummy book layout. The storyboard creates the finished page. This is the process that I hope that each of you are doing right now at this very moment. It's very important to remember to keep in all the various information that you have available to you in your storyboard. It's by using your storyboard that it equips you and enables you to do what we just saw with Yuri's work. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and take another example here. I'm going to get rid of our parrot. I'm going to go back again because I had some questions on the Marvel method and how you use that with doing a finished page. Now the Marvel method again was using these circles. So you have these shapes, and the shapes all go together to form the human body, okay? Or if you're doing an animal, it would go together to form an animal. The shape, just the very basic shapes, okay? Now the important thing to remember here is that using the Marvel method in your storyboard doesn't mean that you can't use the Marvel method for your finished book. I brought in today to show you this little guy. It's a wooden stick figure. I'm sure some of you have seen this before. You can position it just about any way. Has these little bevels on there that cause him to move around. He can be formed and shaped in any position that you want. Now, what these are used for with artists is artists will take these and position them. They'll have these actually placed in a certain way, and they'll draw that. Let's say you need somebody skateboarding, okay? Or if you need, in our case, we're going to have their character sitting down, and he's going to be reading. So we'll position his arms so that he's reading, something like this, all right? Now this is exactly what these little devices are used for. So when you draw the circles, you notice there's not any details on this little guy. He's just shapes. He's circles and different ovals and all this stuff. So all these little shapes go together in creating your characters, okay? All right. So let's go back over here and let's look at what we just created. So here we have the basic structure. His head might be a little too big maybe for a human form. You can use this also, let's say, for a dog. Here we'll have the dog's head. Let's draw the body here. Here's one arm, and I'm sorry, yeah, leg. And then we have the other leg back here and the tail. So you can see how this shape looks nothing like a dog, but when you start to go in and add those details, then you can just add on top of what you have already. So you can put an ear on both sides, you can put his nose up front, his eye, the snout coming out like this, goes back, so on and so forth. So your shape actually comes together over top of these circles and such, all right? Okay, so there we go. Now, how do you use the Marvel method, though, in penciling your page? That's a question. You still use the same process. The difference is, in your storyboard, you left it right here at this stage. That's all you needed. You just needed to know where your characters are on the page and how they relate to the other parts of the page. That's all. You were creating your content for your page. So you knew before ever starting on your pencil page what was going to go there. Now what we're going to do is take that information and create a finished, polished, really good looking page of your book. Okay? You still use the Marvel method though. But like I said, you take it one step further now. And we're going to go through this process together here on the whiteboard. I'm going to show you a couple things, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. Now, I can't stress to you the importance of being able to press down lightly with your pencil. You're going to make changes, you're going to erase, you're going to make mistakes. All of these things can be corrected at this point right now. Okay, so for the purpose of this, we're going to draw a scene together. I'm going to use blue to represent pencil. So we have a head. Okay, let's draw a neck. We have this shape for the torso. A couple more circles for arms. I'm going to actually have this person carrying a book bag. So I'll draw these circles up here. The book bag will be back here like this. The straps will come down, right? Okay. Now for the waist. All right, we have our waist area. We're going to have one leg coming out where they'll be walking. So you draw this oval shape here, draw circles for knees, okay? And then this circle will actually go back. See how it's going back this way? So you're not going to be seeing all of this. But you could draw it in. So there's one character. All right, for my setting now, I'm going to use perspective. I'm going to put this person on a sidewalk. Can you see how the sidewalk comes out now? I may go ahead and put a little bit more lines to help guide me for the sidewalk here. All right, so now let's go ahead and add another character. Over here on the, let's say there's a building that comes out like this, goes back in and down. Remember those lines of perspective, how they follow one another, right? Okay, so let's say there's a building here, and over here we have somebody watching or standing and just watching the people go by. So we'll draw this shape in here, put the arms down, the torso, the waist. We got ovals for legs. Now this is off into the distance a little, so you can notice I'm making it smaller. Okay, we can put a hat on this person. How's that? Okay? Now, this looks absolutely nothing like a finished page of a book yet. So the goal here, though, is going to be to take this and turn it into a finished page for your book. All right, now how we do that? This is all using the Marvel method. We have these shapes, we have these various things that are telling us what's on our page, okay? Now all we need to do is go back and start to add in that detail. Now if you like drawing and illustration and this sort of stuff, it's amazing to think that there's jobs for this out there. You could do this sort of stuff as a job one day if you wanted to. But the goal for this project is to show how much time and effort you're putting into this, okay? It's real important to do your best job. Opportunities like this they don't come around very often, okay? All right, so we have a bunch of circles. And this is supposed to be our finished page. This is not our storyboard. We're pretending that we're looking off our storyboard and we're using these circles to create our finished page. Once you have these circles, I want you to go back then and add the detail. remember, an eraser is your best friend during this process. Next week we'll be looking at color. We touched on color a little bit in the last tutorial. We'll be looking at a little bit of color today, but this is all about penciling your page. So I'm going to use black now as my color, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually draw over top of the blue here to do the to show the detail of our work. Okay, here we go. So here we have the person standing here. You decide stuff at this process like, I think I'm going to give this person long sleeves. Okay, all right, so there's one sleeve, and then you say, all right, so now I'm going to add another sleeve. There's another sleeve. We have our hands here, so we got them holding on to their book bag. Draw the book bag straps coming over top, and you can add the book bag back here. Now this is all with pencil. Okay, you're still drawing with pencil. I'm just I chose to draw this in black to help you kind of understand how this comes together. Okay, so now we have detail added. Then for the head. Now remember what I told you about the head. It's real important to use these guidelines in there. The guidelines show you where things are going to appear on your character's body. Those guidelines help in this matter. So now we're going to put an ear here, another ear here. Okay, we've got shadow maybe coming down for the where the sun's coming down. We can put the hair here. All right, we got an eye, another eye, eyebrow, got a nose here, the mouth, and you draw in the rest of the face. Okay, so you can see how this looks. Now we have a character that is a little more fleshed out. You can see more detail about him, and it's starting to come together like a finished page. Okay, now we'll go ahead and work on the leg. Follow your lines. That's all you got to do is follow those lines, and what comes together is the actual page. So you have this look to your story now, but once you add this detail in, things really come together. So now we can see how this kind of pulled together, and we've created this more detail out of our basic shapes. Okay, and you can go ahead and jump in there and work on the background too. All of this stuff has to be drawn out because what you're going to do after this is color. You're going to add this color on here. You're going to trace over what you've created with either a pen or a darker color to draw over top of the pencil lines. Once you have all those things together, then you can add color. Okay, but this part, you know, if I was taking my time with this, you could see how it would come together more. But for the purpose of the video, we're just going to kind of put it together the best we can. Now we'll draw this guy over here wearing his hat. We'll go ahead and grab a smaller pen line. Now we'll give him a beard. Give him suspenders maybe. And he's standing here on the street corner. Okay? Now when you're penciling in your finished page, you're using the Marvel method. The difference though is you're taking it one step further now. You're not only drawing with circles and shapes, but you're going to also be adding in this detail. Color would happen at this point where you have all of your lines drawn in, and then you go back in, you erase all of the pencil lines. So you've got your Marvel method with the shapes first. Then with pencil you add the detail. Then from there you outline what you're going to keep, what you're not going to erase. If you're using ink, you got to let that ink dry for a little bit. Then you go back in and erase. After you erase, you have a finished product that looks as if you just took a colored pencil or a marker, and you went and just drew freehand on the page, and it looks really cool. People are like, how'd you do that without sketching? But you erased it all, so they can't tell, right? It's just a little trick of the trade, if you will. All right, so we're going to jump over to the table now. I want to show you a few examples of using this the building blocks here to create your finished page. Okay, so let's jump over there now. We have Yuri Chauvitz still pulled up, but this is a great example, and if you can reference this stuff, I really highly encourage you to do that, okay? All right, earlier today we looked at one book that it's one of my favorites. It's called Bone. Now, Bone is written by Jeff Smith. I think that we talked about this a little bit today. Bone is a graphic novel, and I want to show you a couple of the panels in here because you got to remember we're dealing with a few different templates here, aren't we? Where we've got picture books, we've got chapter books, we've got comic books, and graphic novel. So here's some examples of the panels. The panels here are all uniform, so there's 6 per page, and the great part about it is that he's laid this out for us so that we can see exactly what's going on in 6 small panels on every page. Okay? So when you're creating your finished page, try to use craftsmanship. That's my main point with this. All right, so here we have a blank piece of paper, obviously. I'm going to grab one that's a little bit cleaner. And what we're going to do now, we are going to actually be drawing on the page a finished page, what a finished page would look like for a picture book. And keep in mind, I'm going to be using a storyboard to go by. In this case, I'm going to be using the storyboard from Yuri Chauvitz book called Hanukkah Monday. Okay, so here we go. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and sketch it out like he did. I'm going to have my bed. Now look how fast I'm sketching this. I'm not really taking a whole lot of time to make sure that my lines are straight. Now you could go back at the end of this and use a ruler and make sure that all your lines are nice and straight. But for the purpose of this, we're just going to sketch it out. Now you got to pretend that I'm using a storyboard to go by. Okay? All right, so here we have the bedposts, and he's got some covers that are hanging over the railings. Okay? I'm going to pencil in. Now in this part of the penciling, remember I said to remember to take your time, right? Well, this is the part of the penciling for your finished page that you do it very rough, but it's adding that detail that you take time in. So we're going to go ahead and put the character in the bed there sleeping. Draw the other bedpost at the top, coming over to here. And now we have the 4 bedposts that we need. We'll draw the covers coming down. Fabric is really hard to draw, but I know a few students are really good at it. I've seen visiting the schools and all over our region. I've been to schools in Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia. I've been to over 200 schools, and I can tell you right now that some of the best talent that I've seen comes from our region, those counties in the KVAC region. I've even been up to Owen County, out in Sand Lick, and all these other places. And we have some super talented students in our region. I can't wait to see the stuff you create. So pretend with me though that I'm using a storyboard. So see how rough everything is? There's not a lot of detail to this. Not yet anyway. Now rulers come in handy, like I said. Perspective, notice how the window is positioned. It looks as if you could go back into this room, doesn't it? So we're going to put some curtains hanging up here. We got the curtains coming down. Now don't those curtains just look as if they're just right there, just hanging out on the sides of the window? They look almost as if they're supposed to be there, and that's the goal. Use perspective to help guide your stuff. Notice the lines on the window pane. They're right in the middle. This goes straight in, this goes in, this is sort of in the middle. Over here in the background we have a shelf. So you see how I'm just rough sketching this out, not really trying too hard to make for craftsmanship at this point. Now it's only after we put these little shapes in and draw these little shapes that we'll go back then, okay, and we'll actually put in that detail that makes it really stand out. Now for a published book, that's what really matters. If you want to try to get your story published, you don't have to draw like DC or Marvel or Disney, but you have to have craftsmanship. So we're going to draw these images out. Now let me show you something that we kind of referred to earlier today. It's called Dinosaur versus the Potty. And what this book is, and we'll come back to this, what this book is a book by Bob Shea. And Bob Shea is a illustrator. He is worked for Disney. He works for KET now. And in this book, I want to show you a little bit what I mean by craftsmanship. Okay, so we'll open it up here, and notice here though. Let's look at the lines on this dinosaur. All right, now this looks like a very rough sketch. If you notice right here on the edges, see how the white overlaps the teeth, the red's coming in? It looks like he's just took a marker and scribbled it. Okay, now this looks like it's fastly done, but he meant for this to happen. He meant for it to look this way. Let's take another page for an example. Here we go. Look at this. Look at the red around the edges of the character. You can see how he didn't come in all the way into the lines. Look how he's went over the line down here. Now this looks like it's a little bit messy, but that's the theme of the book. Even when he drew in the front of this, he made this out to me, and you can look here. This is a hand-drawn little dinosaur of his that he put in the front of the book, and you can see that it's just a scribble. But you know, if that's your intent, for it to look as if you just quickly put it together, then that's fine. Okay. All right, so we're back here to our page again. This is where we're going to really start to add this detail in. All right, so you want to take your time. If you have a ruler, you want to make sure these lines are nice and straight. You're going to put your ruler down and draw those lines in. Take your time with stuff. For the purpose of the video, I'm going to draw stuff in the best I can, sort of eyeballing this a little bit, and you can see what I mean now with adding the detail. I'm pressing a little bit harder on the page this time. Okay. You can see how the lines stand out more. Now this is pretty much a three-step process. You first scribble it out using the Marvel method with all those circles and shapes and various things. Then from there, you go back with pencil again and you start to add in the detail, pressing down a little bit harder this time around. Once you have that detail added in, you're going to then, the third thing is you're going to go back with either a darker colored pencil. If you're a cartoonist, you're going to be using a marker, or if you're an illustrator and you're doing a picture or chapter book, you could also use a marker. Then you color, staying within those lines. Or unless you're like Bob Shea and your book is meant to look a little bit sloppy, and that's part of the the theme to it, if you will, then you're able to do that and pull it off. That's great. Okay, so we're gonna have a little boy here sleeping on his pillow. All right, and his shoulder coming up a little bit. You can draw a hand up on the pillow here, something like this right here. Okay, and you want to put this detail in there. This is you've got your framework to go by. You have everything you need. The shapes are there. You used your storyboard to design the page. Everything should be ready for you to resource, as we say, and use. Okay. You notice I'm pressing down a lot harder. I want to make sure and get those detail in. Down here with the shoes even. You're adding that detail in, and it really makes a difference. Okay, so you can see how when we're pulling this stuff together now, it would be really easy for me to grab a marker, which I'm going to do here in a second, and I'm going to go over top of this. This is the same type of technique or method that you would use for cartooning or illustration or whatever the template you chose. You're going to want to use this method, okay? And remember perspective, that's big. We'll add the lamp here. Now, last tutorial, I think it was, we talked about lighting, right? Lighting's really important. So I'll use this in a second to show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and finish though, drawing out the detail here. Let's put him a little jar up here. Maybe he's collecting pennies, and maybe a ball. We'll put a ball up on the counter, and maybe a book or two. Add a book here, a couple larger books up top. All right, so now we have a shelf. We have here's the dresser. We have one boot anyway. Let's put another boot on here. There we go. Got the boot in here now. There's his shoes. Let's finish up the window. Something like that, okay? Now the detail when you're adding this, you can still erase if you need to, but pressing down a little bit harder, you know, makes it a little bit more difficult to get those lines to disappear at the end. So you may not do this as quick as I am, and that's okay. I've been doing this a long time. Just do your best to take your time, think out things a little bit before you start drawing. Okay, so now we have the detail added to the page. Now here's what I'm going to do from this step. From this step here, I'm going to be taking a black magic marker, a colored pencil, and I'm going to go over these lines, the exact lines I just put on the page, okay? I'm going to go over each one of these. And what happens is you can go back at the end and erase all those pencil lines that are there, okay? Now, for the purpose of this page, I want you to think about lighting. Lighting is very important. We're going to be putting some light in. Now, obviously, the light could come from one really obvious place in this page. It could come from the window, right? Or, you know, what if it's nighttime? You could have a window, a door cracked, or maybe this light coming from the lamp. You know, there's the different ways to do it, but we're going to set this page up as if it's in the morning time, okay? So what we'll do, we'll draw the character over with the black marker here, put a little bit more outline work on here, and then we'll show you how the lighting how you would show the lighting using color, and for cartoonists, even using black. You don't have to use color to show light. You can use black, that's fine. Like I said earlier, I'm not really, not using a ruler here. I'm sort of eyeballing this a little bit for the purpose of the time for the video, but you see the basic idea, okay? Now, if you are using ink to outline your finished page, I do warn you that you want that ink to dry prior to erasing. I have really messed up a couple times on not being too impatient, I guess, and jumping in there and trying to erase those pencil lines before they're ready to be erased, okay? Also, another little bit of a tip, if you are a cartoonist and you do mess up, then you can go back and use whiteout, okay? Whiteout helps a whole lot. So here we go. Now we have everything outlined that we need to outline. So what I would do at this step, I would go back and take an eraser, okay, and go over all the pencil line. And what happens is the pencil line should disappear, especially if you've used a pen or marker to trace this out by, okay? The pencil line goes away, and what's left is just these black lines, and it looks as if you just sat down and drew this, which is not true. You had that framework to go by. So if we had eraser, you see we could go back, and if you're using a colored pencil, you may erase a little bit of your outline, but that's okay because you're going to add color in there. So you can see how that kind of looks now a little bit, right? Okay, so you would erase all the pencil lines off the page. Now for the purpose and time of this video, I'm not going to do that, but you can. What I am going to show you though, now what this is, I'm going to lay it down here for you can see it. This is, you can buy this at Hobby Lobby, okay? And when you buy it, it's an Aqua Brush. It's just water, that's all it is. And what you would do, you would take this Aqua Brush and you would fill it full of water, okay? It unscrews here, you put water in it, and then you put a little bit of ink, not much ink at all. If you put a little bit of ink, you're going to have a very light gray for a marker. If you use a lot of ink, then it's going to obviously be a lot darker. And I don't know if any of you artists out there know what Copic markers are, or Prismacolor markers, but Prismacolor or Copic markers they're pretty expensive, and they come in all variety of colors. But for the shades of gray up to black, you can get away with buying those markers by buying an Aqua Brush and putting various amounts of ink in there. So let's jump back to the page here and check out how this looks. Now if you have access to any of these things, you can use them. Another thing you can do is just take a simple brush. Take a simple brush, take a cup of water, put a drop of ink in it, stir it up, use your brush. So I always like to test out and make sure what kind of shade I'm using. So you can see here, that's the shade of gray I'm working with. Move it over, there you go. There's the shade of gray I'm working with for that brush. And for this particular brush, we'll see what color should be a little bit, a little bit darker. So you can see, not a whole lot, but a little bit darker. Now, as a cartoonist, what you would do, you would go back on this and you would start to add this in for your, to show your light coming in the room. Obviously, if the light's coming in this way, you got to imagine that it's not going to be reflecting off of this surface because this is your wall that's against the light source, right? Okay, so you add that in there and you want it to cover all around the light source, even on the edges of the curtains, okay? Just the edges. Notice I'm not going around this area. You can put a little bit up here, you can put a little bit back here, but that's where your light's coming in your room, right there, okay? In fact, this entire wall back here should be darkened in, okay? Just as we're doing here. Okay, now, you can imagine then, based on that, where the next gray should be applied. It could go along the posts here, down the side of the bed, down this way, on the outsides of the pillows, around his head. You could do the shelf coming in like this so that it shows a little bit of shadow underneath there, around these objects. You can draw this coming down because you can imagine how the light's coming in. Okay, draw a little bit here. Of course, all of this down here would be dark. This bed would be dark here. The bottom of these posts would be, of course, under his bed would be really dark. So I squeezed the pen a little bit, so it gave me more ink coming out this time. That's what happened just then. If you noticed, it got really dark. Now there's a cutoff point right here because you can imagine that the light's coming in like this, so it's going to touch this floor, right? You can add it on the opposite side of the lamp here. Here's our light coming in our room, right? And of course down here at the bottom of the bed, we're going to have a lot of dark down here. So you can see how this kind of comes together now. We have using just gray to show light. Cartoonists use these types of markers a lot. You may have noticed this on a few of your favorite cartoons or illustrations and wondered how it's done. Well, now you know how it's done. And for the boots here, draw the shadow for those. Well, what we've done now is created basically a finished page of a book. This could be in an illustrated book about a little boy, maybe about what he did for that day. So I really hope that this video has helped you in understanding taking a storyboard and turning that storyboard into a finished page. So what we have is this now. So you can see that using gray and starting out with just rough shapes, we've created what could be a finished page for a children's book. Okay? I hope you've had a great time watching the tutorial today. Remember, go on to theholler.org, participate, communicate, ask questions. Anything you need help drawing specifically, I'll try to help you. But I don't know unless you say, hey, Chris, help me out. So communicate with me. Jump on there. Let me see your work. Remember, it's all about you. One thing that I tell students when I go to every school, I'm nobody special, not a bit. The only reason that I'm here doing this stuff is because I took a little bit time out of my day and worked on it for a very long time. If you were to do that starting off in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and on up grades, by the time you get to my age, you could blow my stuff out of the water. In fact, some of you may already do that. And I'm really hoping that you do because I want to see your work. I want to get your work published. All right, thank you so much for participating. Hope you take it seriously, and I'll see you in the classroom.